A new wave of hope is rising across Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, gold prices are reaching record highs. South Africa is seeing its exports earn more money than ever. Ladies and gentlemen, its currency, the rand, is gaining strength every single day. These developments are opening doors for other African economies as well. Ovigwe Egwegu, a Nigerian policy advisor, ladies and gentlemen, told Sputnik Africa that rising gold prices are more than just numbers. Higher commodity prices mean governments and more revenue. They can actually control inflation better. Investors feel more confident. In simple terms, ladies and gentlemen, gold is giving African nations stronger economic footing.
Look at countries in the Sahel. So the Sahel AES Confederacy. Just see, for instance, how much they've been able to achieve in terms of resource, like domestic resource mobilization, and also value capture in a very short period of time, because they're able to govern their resource, or having a much better natural resource governance laws, whether it's Mali's new mining code that is released in 2023, that all of the major players in the country are essentially have signed up for. That has been very crucial because it needs a lot of finance, and it's a major gold producer. I think probably the fourth on the continent or so, right? Ghana being the largest. The same thing also for Ghana. Ghana is seeing inflation going down from double digit down to 6.3%. Its value of its currency is strengthening, has gained so much in the last 1 year, and all of that has done so much for these countries in terms of investment in security, investment in infrastructure, human capital development, and even seeing an increase in interest from investors to invest in value addition. But fundamentally, from a structural perspective, when African countries can control their resources more, then they can begin to go into conversation of whether they are pegging their currency to gold or that resource or the other resource. If you do not know how, if you don't even have basic control of your resources, then if you pay a currency to that, then you also do not have any control. The fundamental question that comes back to, do you have sovereignty over those things that you could possibly peg your currency to?
Gold has been trusted for thousands of years, ladies and gentlemen, and you can also confirm this. It keeps value even when other financial systems wobble or shake. Okay, Egwegu says Africa must rethink its heavy reliance on the US dollar. Okay. Instead, countries should actually focus on efficiency and of course sovereignty. This means managing trade and of course money in a way that benefits the country first, ladies and gentlemen. Some countries like South Africa and of course Ghana, which is my country, okay, could actually even consider linking their currencies to gold. Okay, others could actually rely or depend on a basket of vulnerable resources. Okay, these are not just economic moves, ladies and gentlemen. They are steps toward independence and of course stability. African nations or states have a lesson to learn here, ladies and gentlemen. Guess what? Owning and controlling natural resources is not just words, ladies and gentlemen. It is security. Countries or states that govern their resources wisely can actually protect, okay, their people from economic shocks. Okay, so this story is about a shift in power. Africa may be reclaiming control over its own future, one gold bar at a time. Let us quickly discuss gold, sovereignty, and of course global reactions. Okay, so gold is more than a metal, ladies and gentlemen. It is a symbol of stability. African states or countries like Mali, Ghana, and of course Zimbabwe show how resources governance can actually manage economies stronger. By controlling gold and of course other minerals, ladies and gentlemen, they can actually stabilize their currencies. Okay, inflation drops, investment actually grow, and of course people's lives improve. Okay, so Egwegu point out that some Western countries view this as a threat. Yes, as a threat. They actually think linking currency to gold is hostile. But for African states or nations, ladies and gentlemen, this this is not about confrontation. It is about sovereignty. It is about fiscal efficiency. It is about controlling trade across borders in a fair way. Zimbabwe is actually an example where it was noting, ladies and gentlemen, once struggling under inflation, the country is now showing signs of recovery. This improvement, ladies and gentlemen, comes from careful control over natural resources. It is actually a reminder that resource governance matters more than just wealth, ladies and gentlemen. Gold is also a reflection of global trust, okay? As the world sees uncertainty in traditional financial systems, the demand for gold rises, ladies and gentlemen. People and of course countries or states tend to it as a safe store of value. For Africa, this is the chance to build resilience, ladies and gentlemen. Let us know your thoughts about this at the comment section. So the moral here is clear. True independence comes from owning what matters, ladies and gentlemen. When nations control resources, they control their destiny. Ladies and gentlemen, they can also honestly protect their people from the ripple effect of global instability. Africa's story is a lesson in planning, foresight, and of course self-reliance. Now let us quickly discuss currency and stability. Now, linking a country's currency to gold is not just for theory. It is a powerful tool, ladies and gentlemen. Countries or states like South Africa and of course Ghana have the potential to create currencies backed, okay, by gold. Others might also use a basket of valuable minerals. The effects can be immediate, ladies and gentlemen. Stability rises, inflation slows, foreign investors actually gain confidence. Igwegu emphasizes that sovereignty in monetary policy is more than pride, ladies and gentlemen. It is a practical necessity. Nations that depend entirely on the US dollar are vulnerable to global shocks, but those that anchor their money to tangible resources can actually withstand crisis better. This shift or change is about long-term planning. Africa has the opportunity to secure its economic independence or sovereignty by managing resources wisely. Countries can actually ensure steady growth and reduce reliance on unstable foreign currencies. Okay, so if you're actually enjoying this particular story, ladies and gentlemen, please just take a moment to like this particular video, subscribe to the community, and of course turn on notifications. Okay, so staying informed about this development helps you understand the changing world. Your support allow us, okay, to continue providing clear factual news about Africa and the global economy, ladies and gentlemen. So the deeper lesson here is patience, ladies and gentlemen, and prudence. Economic sovereignty is earned step by step or by degrees. Wise governance and resource control are the foundation, ladies and gentlemen. Africa is learning that its future depends on how well it manages what it already has. Now let us quickly discuss the future of Africa's monetary independence. The key question for African nations or states is very simple, ladies and gentlemen. Do you control what you can peg your currency to? If the answer is yes, ladies and gentlemen, independence is possible. If no, countries or states remain the mercy of external systems. So growing global demand for gold shows the world is losing trust in traditional financial systems, ladies and gentlemen. Gold has stood the test of time. It protects nations or states and individuals alike during uncertain periods or moments. Africa now has a chance to build a stronger, more resilient economic future, ladies and gentlemen. Countries or states that manage their resources well do more than growth wealth. They actually stabilize their societies. They attract investment, ladies and gentlemen. They reduce the pain of inflation. These are benefits that touch everyday lives. This story is about responsibility, ladies and gentlemen, foresight, and of course fairness. Africa's journey with gold is a story of hope. It is about planning for the long term. By valuing sovereignty and of course efficiency, African nations or states are showing the world a path to economic stability that relies or depends on their own strength. Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the community if you haven't already. Share your thoughts with us, and of course share this video with others, okay? And stay informed about Africa's changing economy, ladies and gentlemen. Your support helps spread knowledge and of course understanding. Together we can actually watch how Africa builds a more independent and of course prosperous or successful future. Thank you so much for staying